Morning, YouTube. It's Saturday morning, 29 degrees. You can see we got some snow all over the place here. There's still some up in the trees. Probably about 2 inches, I guess, altogether. And that's from yesterday till today. Just flurried a little bit during the night. But it's enough to still be winter. I'm beginning to really hate this weather. Well, one day it's in the 50s and the next day it's in the 20s. So the sawmill's probably covered with snow now, and the logs. Looks like we got squirrel prints out there, and that's about it. Yeah, this is unbelievable up on this mountain. I've always lived in a place like this. The last place Sally and I lived, we had a really big house there and a big garage and everything, and I had pretty much all the stuff I have now, if not more. But every time I'd want to take the dog out for training, I couldn't take him out. That was the first Brittany I had, because it was always ice everywhere. And then down off the mountain, it would be like spring. At least Old Glory's blowing up there in the breeze. Hey YouTube. You know, normally when I talk to people, it's usually a conversation about sawmilling, building something. And sometimes, if it's somebody that I've talked to a couple of times or, many times, it's probably the road work going on down here, or some kind of, problem with the weather or something like that. But today, I was talking to somebody about something that was really, I thought that I only thought about stuff like this myself, and in actuality the guy was also thinking about these kind of things. And what it was that it seems, when you're young and you're growing up, I was very interested in earning money, because I knew that money was going to get me to where I wanted to be. I wanted different things in my life. I wanted a nice house, and I managed to have that many times over. And it gets to a point where, as you get older then, like retirement age, you've lived your life. And I hear a lot of people say, would you do your life all over again and stuff like that. And the other day I talked to someone about that, and it seemed that we both sort of agreed that we would want to live our life pretty much the same way, but we'd want to know more. In other words, have the knowledge that we have now that we don't have, that we didn't have then. So anyway, I was talking to this guy today about this, and the funny thing about it is that after I retired and I started thinking about life and what it was, and I always liked history, and I do a lot of reading, and I read about different peoples, and what you're reading about is, the things they had, what they did, how they managed to survive. And somehow or another, with this conversation, it was as if it didn't matter how you survived or what you did. In other words, like in the 2000s or the 1990s and 1980s and so on, I was involved with the construction work, with all the construction tools, excuse me, that we had available to us during that period of time. And now, I'm seeing all kinds of new construction tools that are amazing when you think about what we had. When I first started working, we were still using cable machines, and they're pretty rugged. And it takes a really tough man to run some cable equipment, especially track hose or shovel fronts. So anyway, we went from that, we went to hydraulics and stuff in my lifetime. And while we were talking about these things, and he was telling me about the same things that he went through, for some reason we came to a conclusion with, our thinking, not to say that we're right or wrong, it's just that we were thinking about, does it really matter what you did in your life, whether you were a doctor or a lawyer or a carpenter or a dentist or, a garbage collector? Does it really matter? And how do they, how are you judged by that? And after we talked a while about it, we started bringing religion into the picture. And from what and this is my own feelings now, I'm not trying to push anything onto anybody, I'm just telling you how I think. When I was a kid, we went to church, as kids. And then when I got married, we attended church, but with the work I was doing, I was kind of like slacking off on it. And then it got to the point where I slacked off completely. And, I prayed and thought about God, but it was only in my own mind. It wasn't with someone else. I mean, my wife continuously went to church and everything, and that is a good thing, because she helped me then, get whatever she got out of some things. But when I was talking to this guy about this, we were both coming up with the same idea, which is that none of life seems to matter what you've done. Because when you're our age, we're all doing the same thing. Government has pushed us into retirement to a degree, maybe not everybody, but, and at a certain age when you start feeling slowed down, you're more or less sitting around rather than working and stuff. And we were talking about this, and what does it matter whether I was a doctor and had those same, that same type of end of life thing? Not that I feel I'm at the end of my life, but I'm just saying it's, the working part of my life is over. So we were talking about this, and it seemed as though none of it mattered, like where someone worked or what they did. I mean, it's nice to talk about, like how did you do this or what did you do there, how did you make a living. I like knowing that, because for some reason I remember people by what they tell me they did. If they tell me they did something, then I can remember that. But I don't often remember the names of things. And sometimes I forget the names of people, but I can tell by what they look like where they worked. So anyway, during the conversation, we were talking about how, you get to the point of retirement, like say you're 65, 66 years old, and you're retired. Now, where you are on that spectrum of hitting 80 or 100, and, how hard have you worked, and are you sickly, has a lot to do with this. But it's up in these ages where these things start to take place. And the thing is that it doesn't matter to me anymore what anybody did. It doesn't matter if they say to me I was a cop or I was a nurse. It doesn't matter anymore. It did at one time. And that was when I think I was thinking more about, how earning money and how much someone else might earn and things like that. And now it doesn't matter. What matters is that we lived a life that was full of things. Now for me, working was what I wanted to do. And if I, let's say, I'll just use the word disregarded if I disregarded my kids' desires as they grew up, it was no different than what my parents did. My mom and dad did not go catering around for me wondering what I wanted in life. You know, they raised me with good food, a good education as far as from them directly. I'm not talking about the school one, but from them. And it gave me a good lease on life to be able to put up with and also work with whatever I had to work with to make it, to make things get ahead. And I can remember, you know, when I started working, having not much of anything, and then slowly acquiring stuff, and then getting to the point where we had, my wife and I had a dozen houses that we owned, and you know, things just kept getting bigger and bigger, and I worked with all that stuff, and I was very busy. But now that I'm retired and I look back on this, like I look at all these guys working on the gas line here, and don't get me wrong, I think they need to be working, and I'm glad they are working. I'm not saying that I'm so glad that they're tearing the mountain apart, but I am glad that, you know, they're finding gas and things will sooner or later slow down and they'll be out of here. But what I am saying is that it just doesn't matter what you did throughout your life, as long as you were basically happy, the family you had, if you know, was happy. I know for myself, my children cannot say they did not get anything, because they got everything they wanted. And even though after that things sort of came apart, and I'm not sure of why they came apart exactly, but regardless of that, it's not my problem anymore. Because, you know, like when you read the Bible and things like that, it tells you what to do with children, and you should raise your children, and you know, do the best you can do and keep a strict rein on them. And to me, that's until they're 18. And after they're 18, out, go do your thing. You know, if you need a little help to get going and you're going to be courteous at home, then you can, you know, use that to get ahead. But my point is, we had this conversation about how it doesn't matter anymore what somebody did. And at one time, it, you know, it did. Like, I had friends, one guy, I had friends, a friend who was a priest, and believe it or not, he left the priesthood and became a doctor. Now that seems crazy to me, but as a doctor, I'm sure he made a whole lot more money than he did as a priest. But is that really, you know, something that is important? And I don't know, I can't answer the question, and I'm not trying to answer it. I don't look down on anybody for changing jobs. I mean, I changed jobs from working, you know, building houses. One time we're building houses, the next thing we're putting pipe in, the next thing we're building bridges. So, you know, then you come back to, okay, let's go back to building houses because things are slow in other areas. So it doesn't matter to me what you do, but it did. And I was just wondering why it doesn't matter, you know. And I think that reading the Bible, and my wife and I have been reading the Bible every day. We read the Bible. And when you read the Bible and you understand what you're reading, and you're not being led into anything by somebody except for the book itself, it seems like just being a decent person, trying to defend your family from bad things. And I'm not saying bad like in, you know, totally bad, like, you know, being robbed, although that's part of it, or the house burning down. I'm talking about, you know, defending them to the point where they have food, clothing, and shelter, and they don't have to worry about it, so they can move on in their life a little bit. Now, sometimes I think that the kids should have been made to worry about food, clothing, and shelter, because for me, I think that that's what got the kids to move away with our relationship. But that doesn't matter, because again, I don't feel like they're not my responsibility anymore. and they're all doing whatever it is that they want to do anyway. So I'm just wondering, though, like, why all of a sudden in this age that I'm in, are all of the things that I've done or that someone else has done really doesn't matter, except for, are you pleasant to talk to? Do you have respect for people? Do you have respect for yourself? And do you ever talk about religion? I think religion is a good part of a person's life. Maybe not, I could be totally wrong about that. For me it is. But I was just thinking about this, and I never thought about this before. It never occurred to me one bit that, what somebody's job wasn't important. And I guess it's because my job was important to me, because that's how I fed everybody, all the kids, and my wife. But now it doesn't seem to matter, because I don't have all the mouths to feed. I mean, my wife and I used to spend $1,200 a week for food. Now we're spending, I don't know, $200 every couple weeks. We really don't buy a lot of food. So it's sort of, amazing. And that may be also why, as you get up towards this age, you kind of miss that. But then you realize that, you did all that, and really doing it again, like going back in life and saying, I think I'm going to go back in life and start over. And I don't know if I'd want to do the same thing. I thought I did, because I loved it. I love construction work of any kind. But I don't know if I'd want to do that. I thought maybe I'd want to do something else, and as long as I could feed my family and make a good living at it. But I was wondering if any of you guys had that happened to you as you grew into these into the 60s and 70s, and does it change after this? I mean, what's I've talked to a bunch of people on YouTube here, and some of the guys are really, they're smart. These are not stupid people, and they have great comments that are thought-provoking. Some of them I can't take the time to answer because I just don't have the time, and others I stop and take the time to answer because they're so thought-provoking. And it's sometimes little things. Like a guy had wrote me the other day, I think yesterday, about how he missed, the trying to, like when he was a kid, family would come over and he would enjoy the family. But then after he got his kids, it's like they're all on cell phones and stuff. And I was explaining to him that a couple of years ago, 2 of the grandsons came to visit us because they were going in the Navy. But when they came, they brought their cell phones with them. And no matter how we had tried to have a conversation, we couldn't. Because, not that they weren't rude, but, well, let me put it like this. If I was a kid their age, my mom would have smacked me, and she just said I was rude. But let me put it like this. They were rude with their phones in that the phone meant everything to them. They had it in their hand constantly, both boys. So whenever they got a message from anybody, no matter who it was, you could see they'd maybe smile in the middle of something and then answer something and not really continue the conversation we were having. And it makes it hard for us as grandparents then to figure out, do these kids know what's going on in life, or are they just playing these games? Because I don't really know. I didn't do what they did, and I know I didn't have enough time to do what all I wanted to do. I barely had enough time. And I don't see how they have enough time, but maybe they're not interested in that, and apparently they're not interested in it. But it's just amazing that those things are starting to fade from my wife and I, from our thought process. In other words, like, we raised these kids and the idea was, get a job, get a job, get a job, get a job, so that you can take care of yourself. That was the main concern for us. And it ended up where the grandkids now, we started the same type of thing with them. Not forcing them to get a job, but more or less, are you working? Do you have a job? This and that. And for the most part, they all started off getting a job, but they didn't keep the job. And they were chasing things that we chased, but we chased it in conjunction with something. For instance, I chased my wife while I was working, and it ended up, with us getting married, but we still took care of stuff that needed to be taken care of before that happened. So it's hard to figure out why all of a sudden, and like I say, it just happened in the past maybe year or two, where it just doesn't matter anymore. It's not our problem. It's not our worry, and we're stopping worrying about it. When for all those years we did worry about it, I worried about my kids something fierce. Every time I would be coming home and I'd see a car accident on the thruway, man, I used to think to myself, Lord, I hope I don't get in an accident. I got to take care of these kids. I remember I bought a $1 million life insurance policy when I was very young, just in case something would happen to me that the kids would be able to be taken care of. So, I don't know. It's just one of these things where, and I know this has nothing to do with friggin' sawmilling. This is something different. My channel, by the way, for those of you who think that it's all about sawmilling, is not. I had started my channel doing body work and stuff and all kind of things, and that's just how life went for me. But anyway, it's just weird that all of a sudden, without someone telling us to forget that we started forgetting it. And the person I was talking to, who we never talked about this before, all of a sudden was saying the same thing, and he's the same age. So that's it's amazing to me that this took place, because I didn't know that what I was thinking would be in the minds of some other people. But I guess, we lived in this country, we all have to do the same thing in this country. I mean, I feel very good about how I helped America grow, because I built a lot of things and helped to build a lot of things that helped this country to get bigger and better and more homes for people to live in and own, and for some reason, even that, like owning homes, seems like, you watch these videos, these kids are buying these little shacks, an 8x12 trailer and trying to build a house on it. I guess they don't want to pay the bills we paid. I don't know. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I think that like this house we're living in now is a lot smaller than the house we lived in before. But at the same time, it's already getting too big for Sally, and it's a little bit too big for myself as well. To make any kind of repairs. So thank God it's a new house, and I don't really have any repairs to make. But I'm just saying, I was wondering if other people in the 60s and 70s are feeling the same way. If you could leave a comment to that effect, I'd like to know about that. And I know I have some real steady viewers who would be interested in that subject a little bit. Not that I don't want to start, just talking about that. I'm just talking about it today because even though I did the same things I do every day, my normal chores, I still had these thoughts on my mind, this thought and, this conversation, and it seemed to be funny that someone else was thinking the same thing I was, even though we never talked about it. So I figured I'd just mention it on here because I know there's a lot of smart men out there, and I was just wondering if you guys had the same kind of thoughts. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with, like if you have a family and you guys are close and your kids moved out and you go visit them every weekend or they visit you, God bless you, because that is a wonderful thing. I don't have that, my friend didn't have it, so this is why we say what we say, and I know a lot of other people didn't have it either. And sometimes things go wrong in marriages and in life, and you know, you lose what you thought you had, and then you have to start over, I suppose, and you make things somehow right. But anyway, yeah, that's my question. I was just wondering about that. So that's all I wanted to talk about today on the YouTube. It's been a slow day. It was in the 30s all day today. It's around 28 degrees right now. It's supposed to be sunny for the next 4 or 5 days, supposed to go up to 50. I'll believe that when I see it. But anyway, the snow that they said we were going to get, we did get. You know, it was 2 inches one day, 2 inches another day, and then we're losing some of it because of the bright sunshine. And it was a good sunny day today as well. So anyway, guys, if you have a chance and you want to comment on this, you know, I'd like to, I'm hoping I explained it good enough that you could give me a small comment or whatever you want on what I just said. So anyway, have a good one, guys. It's Saturday. I believe it's the 7th of March already. I can't wait for the end of April so that we can get into some nicer weather. And then I can start to do the sawing, because I gotta get my boards all planed, and I wanted to start making furniture. And let me just tell you this. This past year I started taking a new medicine sometime in, I think, September or so. Maybe a little earlier than that. And that medicine that I took has really been knocking me apart. For a while there, I couldn't do anything. It was just making me sick every day. So now I'm at the point where I still take the medicine, but I only get sick like once a week or so, maybe 2 days out of a week. And I'm trying to talk to the doctor about it, and the medicine is fairly new. It's not real new. I mean, other people have used it. But it kind of goofed me up, especially my energy level. And that has me upset, because normally I'm busy and I don't like not being busy. I feel bad about that. But anyway, that's what happened to me this past kind of fall. And then with Carmine not staying here helping me, that made things kind of come apart too a little bit, because I expected to get a lot of other things done. So anyway, that's my video for today, and I hope you enjoyed the little chat here that I have with you. And if you have a comment, please leave it, because I'd like to know what you guys think about what I was saying about the conversation I was having today. So anyway, guys, have a good one. Thanks for watching.